But why did you dare to attack me? While thinking about this, Bok Kai once again changed his attacking posture, lowering his body and intending to sweep a path to knock down the opponent. Indeed, several consecutive attacks quickly forced Vuong Bo to step back, trembling, and he couldn't help but smile in satisfaction. You look weak but quite decent, don't you? As for Bok Kai, he was now more aware of the opponent before him than ever. Dealing with such a skilled swordsman requires cunning tricks to expose vulnerabilities. Then the opponent greeted with a tone of arrogance. Running away with your legs is not because I'm afraid, you know. With that said, the two large swords were firmly in hand, ready to strike, causing Vuong Bo to startle, and the force generated was so strong that it created a terrifying shockwave, a loud explosion, scattering debris everywhere. Then there was no more need for further engagement. The young man had already thrown a smoke bomb and fled. I don't want to fight fellow peers upon first meeting, he said. However, they recognized the unparalleled skill with the sword, so they had to report back to their master. Unfortunately for him, Thien Pham observed from a distance, only revealing himself now. It's like avoiding a pumpkin and running into a coconut. Immediately, the unrivaled sword technique was unleashed. You think you can block my attacks with that? The more he spoke, the more powerful the two forces became. After a while, the opponent couldn't move, no matter how angry he was. He couldn't budge. Thien Pham, on the other hand, became increasingly afraid of this wretched individual, whose strength was akin to that of his master. While lost in thought, the protagonist prepares to strike. Are you ready to be defeated? Yes, you are quite clever indeed, came the response. Despite being gentle, the body was pushed back strongly. Fortunately, with good balance, he rolled around for a while, and now heavy breathing was evident on his face. Not only that, but he also held his head, showing signs of pain. Then he fainted due to exhaustion. Thien Pham calmly approached to examine for a while. What are you planning to do with this masterful opponent? Indeed, we must eliminate any potential threat, replied the elder. It seems he doesn't belong to any faction. He might have heard of the unrivaled sword, both from the demonic and orthodox sides. Criticism alone has kept him hidden for so long. Now, let's find out his identity and intentions. Thankfully, the young man merely indicated pressure points, not severing his arm as before. The elder continued to request an examination of this stranger for a while, then gradually opened his eyes. Upon regaining consciousness, his whole body was numb, unable to move. In his head, there was not fear but confusion as to why he fainted just because of a few words from the master. You are truly straightforward. Live or die, listen to the whole story, and feel free to ask any questions you have. I will confess everything, the protagonist said. Duong Ho Dan understood that the opponent might not belong to any faction yet. Asking for his name, he learned that the young man's name was Vuong Bon. If he were the successor of the unrivaled sword, he would undoubtedly use the royal family name. This person was his disciple, with a temporary name, so the next step was to find out why Vuong Bon attacked Thien Pham's group. He straightforwardly explained that he became enraged upon seeing the body of Cam Mai Duong, so he attacked in anger. Hearing this, the elder did not inquire further but demanded Vuong Bon to come forward. Thien Pham's brother voluntarily presented the child in front of Vuong Bon, slightly curious. The answer received was that the child was Cam Mai Duong's offspring. He also pointed to the corpse of Tom Thien Hoi. We intended to rescue both mother and child, but failed. It was because of him, gesturing towards the mentioned individual, and his trap that we couldn't save them. Exclaiming the acting skills of the elder were impressive, Vuong Bon still doubted. Duong Ho Dan added, you were captured by us, so no need for deceit. You did well. I misunderstood, but thanks for being honest. Indeed, this plan has caught a big fish. Why did you seek Cam Mai Duong? He didn't hesitate to state his purpose. He sought her out to ask for medicine to save someone. How noble of him. He sought her out simply because she was a female doctor, not due to any close relationship. Indeed, if she were the granddaughter of the divine healer, her medical skills would likely surpass those of ordinary physicians. Ho Bom couldn't help but chuckle upon hearing this. Are you the long-time addict, aren't you? Vuong Bon expressed firmly that he had no ulterior motives. However, both parties continued to argue heatedly until evening. The elder continued to inquire about Bitch's requests for medicine. It turned out that he had a younger sister who had been ill for a long time. All the doctors they consulted were helpless, except for Cam my Duong. You also have your own suffering, so it understands that you're angry, the elder acknowledged. However, Duong Ho Dan knew there were still many uncertainties. It seems like you're misunderstanding something, aren't you? Now the protagonist speaks up. If you want to live, then answer honestly. If you keep playing games, you'll lose your life soon. Vuong Bon repeatedly denied any deceitful intentions, but Thien Pham's demeanor suggested he hadn't killed anyone in a long time. Seeing this, the young man finally grimaced, his face devoid of any blood, and sobbed, expressing his true feelings. Actually, my sister's condition is very severe. Others call it frozen blood vessel, but my mother refers to it as 9-yin frozen blood vessel. The elder was moved by this revelation. As Thien Pham saw his expression, he asked Nano for details, but the system remained silent. Then he transmitted a message asking for detailed information about this illness, a condition where the blood vessels are blocked due to excessive cold energy, primarily affecting girls in the martial arts world. This disease has no cure, the patient carries it for life. Some may survive, but the imbalance caused by excessive yin energy in the body will lead to death before the age of 20. These were just some minor details that Duong's elder learned. Vuong Bon was worried because the medicine was running out and his sister's condition was worsening, especially now that Cam Mai Duong had died. He had something in mind after looking at that face. He had begun to ask Duong Ho Dan about some things. Are you the one who asked others to save Cam Fu Dan? Indeed, I am a physician, aren't I? This makes sense according to Thien Pham's plan. If she is his sister, then there must be some connection to the unrivaled sword, the Vuong family. Although he cannot make him join the sect, there may be future usefulness. The elder understood his meaning and also mentioned that the person who requested Cam Fu Dan's rescue had medical skills far superior. If that's the case, can you help us ask her to treat my sister? As they were talking, a loud noise echoed not far from them. Although aware of the situation, they still didn't understand. Indeed, actions speak louder than words. Let's take the last pill. It's not even 2 hours yet. Thien Pham felt the surge of energy nearby, though not too far. However, the chilling energy he felt was clear quite. Vuong Bon quickly affirmed that it was caused by his sister. He had heard that those with the 9-yin frozen blood vessel had extremely dense yin energy, but he didn't expect it to be this much. Take off your robe for me. If I don't use acupressure to calm her down immediately, she'll be in danger. Without hesitation, Thien Pham immediately removed all the acupressure points on her body. Thank you. The protagonist spoke up again, demanding that he personally lead him there. With Bok Kai following me, that's enough. The elder and Hopom stayed behind with the child. After they finished speaking, the three of them flew away quickly. In the area affected by the shock, bandages were spreading rapidly. Around them, the sound of clattering could be heard, and everything froze completely. Vuong Bon led Thien Pham and his men straight to the center, where Bot Kai was sensing it was like winter approaching. Without activating the technique, he would likely die. Ahead, a woman emanated a terrifying aura, making it impossible to approach. So, the three men stayed a bit further back to observe. Over time, her energy surged relentlessly. Although temporarily ill, she looked quite cute. The air around her was truly terrifying. Vuong Bon, frightened, called out to his sister to wake up, but there was no response. Just as predicted, they had to use acupressure techniques to calm the intense energy in her body. It was too cold. Even though he had already circulated his internal energy, he still trembled. The cold air was greatly different from previous episodes of illness. As they approached, their steps became heaviest. Vuong Bon kept calling his sister's name, but she remained silent. He had to prepare his acupoint control as usual. A few pieces of ice had fallen into La Tra's hand, creating a sudden stillness. The woman turned back, catching Vuong Bon off guard. But the closer he looked, the more astonished he became. Her aura was distinctly different from ordinary people. Miss Vuong continued to grip her brother's hand tightly, as if intending something. Her arm grew colder and gradually froze. What are you doing? Stop it quickly. I've used internal energy, but this overwhelming aura can still penetrate. If it continues, my body will turn into a mobile ice block. Vuong Bon pleaded. Reluctantly, he withdrew his leg and hand from his sister's grip. Although intentionally attacking his junior, he was quickly halted. The freezing bones around slowed down Vuong Bon's strike. Lost in thought, he failed to notice and was promptly countered, receiving a strike on his shoulder, immediately frozen in an instant due to the disease. The girl seemed unaware of it anymore. At this rate, he will freeze to death from the divine realm above. Suddenly, Thien Pham leaped in to assist his newfound friend. Both women became alert as they halted. The protagonist spoke up. Vuong Du Hoyen has pushed Vuong Bon away, taking the initiative to attack Thien Pham, relatively slow in speed. He easily welcomed her senior sister's warning. If you touch the freezing aura, it will be very dangerous. But as soon as he finished, something strange happened. The freezing aura emanating from Du Hoyen seemed to melt. Seeing this, Vuong Bon was amazed at the protagonist's profound strength. I told her to stop, didn't I? Why didn't she listen? He thought. As he spoke, the protagonist activated his energy and struck directly at the woman's chest. Even ice couldn't be formed. This ability was truly bizarre. Although it looked strange, the strength of this person couldn't be stopped. His senior brother beside him had already released his junior sister to help Du Hoyen. At the same time, he had beaten two men away, each on one side. Indeed, the ability of this person was extraordinary. Vuong Bon, being the most affected, was floating on the common thread without being able to control himself. He fell aimlessly towards Bok Kai, but luckily, Nai Kiem didn't avoid it and caught his colleague. He had foreseen that the air around her would be so strong that it couldn't be guessed. This aura is so terrifying. Although it's urgent, Vuong Bon still expressed his gratitude. I thought he was a cunning fellow, but I didn't expect him to be so sincere, he thought. Thinking this, the opponent became even more painful due to being overwhelmed by the freezing aura. Bak Kai continued to use internal energy to dissolve the ice layer, helping him. Still, as he was about to express his gratitude again, he quickly reminded, "Quickly activate your energy to dissolve the freezing aura. We don't have time for that. If my junior sister can't be stopped, something worse will happen. Last time, she wasn't alone, so I tried every way to block the aura before it completely spread. Yet it happened at the right moment when that person wasn't here. If it wasn't for that person, no one could resist the aura of that girl." But then his eyes had to be surprised when he saw Thien Pham displaying his true power. Vuong Bon understood that if that person didn't stop it, the protagonist would surely suppress Du Hoyen's power. If he couldn't stop it, something worse would happen. However, I didn't think that would happen. Looking towards Bok Kai, Vuong Bon silently prayed, trusting him too much. Is he similar to that person at the center of the aura? This woman remained silent amidst the aura. Perhaps her reason had completely disappeared after an unexpected outbreak of power. Her internal energy seems boundless, emitting such strong aura while still enhancing her momentum different from those who practice ordinary internal energy. He thought to himself while effortlessly blocking numerous ice shards shot towards him. Indeed, facing such an extraordinary woman for the first time, he felt interested. The power of her cold energy continued to manifest as Du Hoyen unleashed it, shooting straight ahead. Bak Kai shouted loudly to warn the master to be careful of the danger. The protagonist's defensive moves effortlessly parried every strike, causing no harm. On the contrary, they redirected the attacks back towards their assailant. Nano, activate reality augmentation for enhanced perception and analyze the trajectory of the ice fragments, he commanded. This provided him with a terrifying force, shattering a corner just behind Thien Pham after he had knocked her away. Gradually, as he simultaneously engaged the protagonist and closed in, the ice shards continued their relentless assault, seeming almost supernatural in their speed and strength compared to their initial display. Witnessing this scene, Vuong Bon, sensing much about his new acquaintance and combat partner, couldn't help but marvel. Was he planning to directly confront her, or was he gaining insights as he fought? Inside the ice fragments, there was no internal energy. They were just ordinary ice propelled at high speed. This time, he advanced closer, almost facing Hoyen directly. Unexpectedly, a wall of ice rose quickly from the ground like a shield, blocking all external attacks. This sight was incredible. Even when obstructed, the ice fragments ceased their movement. With no barriers in his path, the protagonist moved freely. Recognizing this as an opportunity, he swung his sword vigorously towards the icy barrier. The sharpness of the Bak Long Dao easily carved a large opening, creating more spacious surroundings. In this manner, Thien Pham charged straight towards the woman who seemed to have lost her senses, as Du Huyen had opened her eyes and resumed channeling her energy. Indeed, her power surged hugely, emanating from within her body. However, the protagonist pressed on relentlessly, swiftly targeting pressure points to release the cold energy outward. Immediately, her consciousness began to return, and ice fragments fell around her as she lost control. The whirlwind of madness surrounding her ceases as the cold air dissolved. Fatigued, she collapsed towards the protagonist unconsciously. "This is just a little girl after all," he thought, his tone indifferent. With the situation under control, Vuong Bon rushed over urgently. "Have you truly subdued my junior sister? That's quite impressive," he exclaimed. Ignoring his empty words, the protagonist noticed something odd about him. His skin had turned purple, indicating an unfavorable condition. Suddenly, Du Huyen's body underwent several changes. Her veins swelled significantly. Although he had blocked her pressure points, the internal energy continued to surge. It seemed urgent to find a new divine healer. Vuong Bon appeared bewildered, not understanding his opponent's intentions. "My sister will take her to our ancestral home in Cam Mai Duong, but even if she's formidable, there's no guarantee she can fully restore my sister's condition. If even the divine healers are helpless, then we're out of options, and we must act quickly. Follow me," he urged the others to hurry. Upon hearing the term divine healer, the individual appeared to reveal them. "Where is this divine healer?" Bak Kai explained further. "The ancestral home of Cam Mai Duong is where the divine healer resides. I've obtained medicine from her before, but she never mentioned this. It would have been helpful to know earlier." With various thoughts swirling inside, Bak Kai urged everyone not to dawdle and to quickly follow the Thien Pham Lord, who had returned to the waiting group. They promptly rose a new boat as the dawn was breaking, ensuring their safety as they crossed the Yellow River. Once across, they didn't pause but continued their journey, utilizing their skills to quickly reach the heavenly demon temple at the foot of Uncle Mountain. The master of this fortress hurried out to welcome the Thien Pham Lord, encouraging the presence of the divine envoy. The crowds of devotees eagerly surrounded, hoping for a glimpse of their leader. Vuong Bon received another surprise as his newfound acquaintance turned out to be such a prominent figure. Surely, he had utilized some extraordinary method to preserve his youth. Without much ado, Thien Pham inquired about the whereabouts of the divine healer. The attendant hastily reported that the divine healer was at the First Guest Avenue, hosted by Elder Duong Chuong. Bak Kai temporarily leaving the child with her body and attending to other matters first. Afterward, they could visit the divine healer. Following this plan, they made their way to where the divine healer was taking a break within Van Q, near the Bone Flower Lake. She appeared serene, enjoying her morning meal. Seeing the man in her heart returning, Van Q appeared very happy. She hurried out to greet him with very charming words, but then also showed curiosity because the main character was carrying someone on his shoulders. Upon careful observation, it was indeed a strange woman. Her mood began to decline, and she continuously asked about the condition of the other person. After a while of explanation, the patient quickly received the examination of Camlo2, this disease being very rare, so it took a lot of time to recheck, and explained to Van Q that the master only brought the patient to her to repay the debt of treating the illness. After hearing this, she was very satisfied and thought that her master was not a libertine person like that. At first glance, if only saying that the patient was normal and also a beautiful woman with snow-white skin, she was indeed concerned. The master was not the type of man swayed by the beauty of his biological sister, Thien Pham. He continued to talk about this disease. She had read that it was a 9-yin, ultimate vein disease. If someone with very strong positive energy carries it, it will harmonize the yin and yang and help alleviate the illness. The only treatment method mentioned is the combination of male and female. Everything they were talking about was overheard by him. After a while of pulse-taking, Canlo too sobbed to talk about the situation. This is indeed a 9-yin, ultimate vein disease. How could I have thought I would never encounter this disease again in my life? I don't know who prescribed the medicine for her, but temporarily it increased her positive energy, so she could maintain her life. I really wanted to talk about the death of Cam Mai Duong, but was stopped by Thien Pham because if spoken out, Duel would not be able to run for treatment in time. Just now, she said she thought she would never encounter this disease again. So does it mean she has been treated before? But the doctor shook his head with the implication that it cannot be cured, which means she has never been treated for this disease before, right? Seeing Van Bon's anxious expression for not understanding her words, if she couldn't transmit positive energy, what other way could she use to treat it? One is not feasible immediately, so it is almost impossible. The other way she thought was impossible was what? Cam Lo too was very hesitant to speak out about this. Then suddenly there was a lot of aura emanating around the courtyard. It seems that no one here could feel that aura, only I could feel it. It seems that the other party is a master of the same level, even surpassing my expectations. Thinking of this, he also included his subordinates to stay still to check outside alone. Each person has their own unique aura, and it's the same as the energy in the body. Each master whose internal energy can feel the aura practices of others. The higher the level, the further they can feel. A master of mystery can even feel the aura emitted from very far away, even if it is mixed into the natural energy streams. Earlier, after the main character rushed back to Dao Hubei, there was also a master chasing very quickly. The negative energy from Hoang Sun had passed Hoang Ha and headed southwest. Why couldn't he catch up with this journey despite using the fast-traveling technique? He hadn't been able to approach the culprit's energy traces, indeed the culprit who kidnapped my daughter. If that group of people can suppress that girl's head, they must be all masters, and they must be extremely skilled. Truly unparalleled swordsmanship. Wang Qin discovered that his son had been kidnapped. He silently vowed in his head that if caught, they would surely pay a big price. Passing through the Thien Ma, then cult court, he felt the surge of energy, and also descended. He just looked at the sign in front of the gate. The fact that the culprit came out from here was unexpected, but it doesn't matter because they will have to die by my hands. A guardian quickly approached to ask what the person in front of him had to do, but it seemed like Wang Qin wasn't someone who liked greetings very much. He displayed an angry expression, and in the blink of an eye, the two weak guards fell to the ground without understanding what had happened. Seeing this, others also rushed over, questioning, "Who are you to dare to confront the disciples of the heavenly demon sect?" It was still a cold and imposing action, clearly demonstrating immense authority. With just a wave of his hand, many were subdued. As General Chi Vian arrived at the scene, even he became frightened. Just one move, and 4 of our martial artists were defeated. Realizing this, he raised his voice in the manner of Master Trin Thuong. "Please, cease your hand. How could you act so recklessly in the heavenly demon sect until now? Because of your arrogance, Wang Qin no longer wishes to speak further. I warn you, if you don't want to die, hand over my child immediately." "What are you saying? We don't know anything about that, and cannot be responsible for it. You still deny and resist. Then I will personally investigate." Feeling the recklessness of this action, Captain Hove ordered the remaining subordinates to charge forward to detain. Despite their formidable strength, the opponents showed no fear, immediately branding their peerless swords, demonstrating a mysterious power. The weapons in the hands of those individuals were inexplicably controlled. Hundreds of swords hovered in the sky, astonishing those below. Some the technique recognized as the Sword Sovereign's technique. How could such a master come here to cause trouble? This is your final warning. If you don't want everyone here to die, quickly release my child. Unaware of what Tian Pham had done, he continued to deny. We of the heavenly demon sect will kneel before such a threat. Indeed, a stubborn lot. I will show you what a festival truly entails. This is your choice, so don't blame me. As soon as these words were spoken, all the swords above plummeted straight down, aimed at those below. No one could do anything but await death. Then suddenly those swords began to tremble violently. It seemed like they were losing control. With just a little more, a river of blood would have been created right in the heart of the Mon Chi temple. People became even more afraid and still didn't understand why this was happening. Wang Qin also showed surprise. My aura combined with the swords has been severed. Indeed, no one else could have done this except Tian Pham. He stepped out slowly, causing the great master to startle. With a gentle handshake, all the opposing subordinates retained their lives. Still surprised. Why did that happen? Nano succeeded in channeling the internal force of the owner into those swords, and then controlled the remaining 4,000 swords to attack the enemy immediately from the pinpoint of Tian Fam's gaze. He locked onto the targets he had controlled all the ki that had been manipulated back, all the ki that had been held by Vuong Qin. Seeing this scene, he had never thought about it. This was the first time someone had stolen my swords and used them to attack back. How extraordinary! With so much sword energy, how could that kid have enough internal energy to control them all? He's only about 20 years old. How could he have internal energy equal to mine? Surely he belongs to the heavenly demon sect. I wonder what his identity is. Then that curiosity was clarified when everyone around knelt down and witnessed the heavenly demon sect master. Vuong Qin also learned about the situation, that the heavenly demon sect had a young master who had recently taken office. He must be the one who subdued my daughter. Outside the door, Fan Dehobak Chihin rushed to report because that gentleman had rushed into our place and attacked the disciples of our sect. He said we had kidnapped his child and imprisoned her here, and also threatened to release her. Upon hearing this, he understood that the person in front of him was the peerless sword sovereign. Vuong Qin's other subordinates heard and understood that the person was one of the 5 great martial arts masters of China. Why does he know about me? Surely the kidnapper must be this brat. If I were to confront him, it would be quite difficult, not a simple task. And the longer it takes, the more the demonic influence will spread. By then, I'll have an opponent that truly cannot be defeated. Feeling uneasy, he withdrew his sword and no longer waited for Thien Pham to speak up. Instead, he took the initiative to greet the honored leader of the Devil Sect at Ha Vo Song Kim Vuong. Upon hearing the greeting, the protagonist also gathered his thoughts. All the swords lost their strength and fell to the ground. He ordered his subordinates to take the unconscious martial artists to the Waiquan for treatment. Initially, it was thought that they were all dead, but upon re-examination, they were all still alive, only suffering minor internal injuries. He expressed his gratitude for resolving the matter in this way. Thien Pham then spoke up, confirming that his intention was not to incur enmity with anyone. He only intended to warn and punish the person who had harmed his daughter. It was unexpected to meet the leader of the Devil Sect directly. In such a situation, he should have been more polite. However, he could sense his daughter's fate and wanted to know why the leader had taken them away. The protagonist was very pleased because he was about to gain a great advantage. He apologized for causing Vuong Qin to misunderstand, explaining that his daughter's condition was too severe, so he had to quickly bring her here. He relied on the leader for bringing her here with good intentions. Although he acted in haste, it was a mistake on his part. However, the physician caring for his daughter at Haongha was also very competent. Before he could finish his sentence, a cold aura spread strongly, indicating that perhaps she had already released the pressure points. Wondering only about this, he requested Vuong Qin to accompany him to check on their condition. They quickly flew to Cabe Lo Tu's location. As they approached, they saw the entire room had been destroyed. Even before getting close, a chilling atmosphere pervaded. It seemed as if winter had arrived. Ru Huayan had already subdued the protagonist's subordinates to a corner. Perhaps she had released the pressure points herself and then reverted to her uncontrollable state. Duong Ho was considering inviting the sect leader or the senior Duong for assistance, but before they could do so, the woman manipulated the ice to attack, forming a path of sharp ice shards. Now, despite the situation not being clear, Van Q still requested moving the physician to a safer place. Both she and Zhuang Ho flew up to avoid it. Then they unleashed their abilities to suppress the source of that power, but it had no effect. As soon as they arrived, it disappeared entirely. It was unbelievable how their strength disappeared upon reaching there. How could their strength vanish upon arriving? Du Huayan emitted a lot of cold aura from within her, creating a terrifying oppression. Although the swords were strong, they couldn't withstand this level of energy. It froze instantly wherever it reached, accompanied by countless ice shards flying towards the physician's location. The group didn't know how to handle this. Van Q felt the mysterious power of Du Huayan. This was not an ordinary martial artist. It resembles the legendary Snow White or the white-haired witch. As she finished speaking, Vuong Qin's daughter controlled numerous ice pieces to surround them with just a small movement. They all rushed down quickly this time, faster and denser than before. Van Q had no choice but to try to resist, but suddenly everything stopped right in front of their eyes. The ice shards gathered in the air strangely. Luckily, Thien Pham arrived just in time. Another moment, and the woman would have died in his arms. Woo Song-Kim also appeared, surprising everyone. He didn't speak but immediately restrained his daughter with just a gesture, and all the power above disappeared completely. The protagonist, seeing this scene, was deeply impressed. With a sword skill like this, he could completely block the Gu Kim's energy. Glancing towards Ru Hyan, Vuong Chin felt uneasy. He guessed that the girl would get sick unexpectedly, but he didn't expect it to be this serious. He needed to act quickly. As he was thinking, he immediately rushed in to try to get close to the acupoints to stop the entire negative energy, but a wall of ice slowly rose. His figure was very agile and penetrated this shield immediately, then displayed his acupoint skills. It worked instantly, but then his body resisted. Understanding that the negative energy was too strong, so even half of his strength couldn't do anything. He tried once more to see if it was feasible, but his body was filled with negative energy, resisting internally. After a while, the situation stabilized. Although consciousness was temporarily restored, a lot of cold aura rose, so much so that just touching it made the body feel icy. What to do from now until reaching Long Ho Trai will take half a day. By then, Du Huyen might have frozen to death. With a headache from not finding a solution, the physician stepped out. Vuong Chin observed carefully. Who was this muscular woman? Why did he feel so familiar? Cam Lo Tu didn't say anything, just stared at her pulse, rechecking her body. Seeing Wu Shuangjian's curiosity, the protagonist explained that he had brought the talisman to the end, and the negative energy had spread all over her body. If this continues, that miss won't be able to endure much longer, at most half a day. Now, there really isn't any other choice. Just as he said this, Cam Lo Tu touched on Thien Pham and said, "What do you mean by that? Is something wrong with my daughter? Now, the only way to save this girl is through the union of yin and yang." Hearing this, even someone as composed as her father was taken aback. Then his aura flared up from the disbelief. Unable to accept it, he grabbed the physician by the collar and angrily exclaimed, "What nonsense are you spouting? What do you mean by that?" At this moment, Vuong Ban finally recognized his father and spoke up. "What are you doing here? This is the person father has been looking for. She is Cam Lo Tu, the renowned physician." The situation had stabilized, and Du Huyen was back in bed resting. After hearing the story from Nam Shua by Great Master Ku Huyen, Vuong Chin couldn't refute anything. Van Q, on the other hand, murmured about the union of yin and yang. Clearly, she couldn't accept the idea of her man being with another woman. Thien Pham felt the same way, fearing that many concubines would only lead to trouble. Having experienced firsthand the consequences of the 6 great sect's actions, he understood better than anyone else that he couldn't betray her. So Vo was certain that his sect leader would intervene to help the unfortunate woman. Of course, this was truly unfair to Van Q. If she thought more deeply, not only would she earn the gratitude of Vo Som Kim, one of the 5 masters of Trong Goyen, but she would also turn him into an ally. Cam Lo Tu had repeatedly reminded them that time was running out. To control the flow of internal energy, they can only reduce the aura. However, this wouldn't prolong her life. Vuong Ban had to console his father. Although he felt uncomfortable himself, there seemed to be no other choice. The immediate priority was to save Du Huyen. While he understood this, he couldn't help but felt troubled by the fact that his father entrusted his daughter to someone he had just met for the first time. If something happened to her, it would be solely due to destiny. A knight's fate and the consequences would have to be borne by him. Despite his esteemed status, it wasn't certain that Vuong Chin could avoid responsibility for this matter. However, realizing the depth of the bond between Van Q and Thien Pham, he was worried that his daughter might end up as just a concubine rather than having a rightful place by his side. However, he heard that many generations of sect leaders in the demon sect had many wives. At least he didn't seem like a covetous man. Just as he thought about it, Ru Huyen began to experience intense pain again. Gritting his teeth in agony, he turned to the protagonist, seeking the intervention of the sect leader. "Since my existence, I've never begged anyone, but today I may have to break my own rules," he said before kneeling down in despair. Quickly, Thien Pham helped him up and heard his confession, whispers to the sect leader, begging him to save Du Huyen, his daughter. He earnestly implored the sect leader, not as one of the 5 masters, but as a desperate father. He had discarded his pride and made this plea. If rejected, it would mean becoming an enemy. However, Thin Pham couldn't fear this person, but he knew that despair would forfeit an opportunity to gain the support of the 5 masters and potentially other sections. There were too many conflicting thoughts about concubines and the like, making Nano suggest activating the contraceptive implant during their work. If not understood, she explained in detail. The implant was a channel through which sperm moved. Nanomachines in the body could effectively block this channel compared to surgery. This was a logical solution, but Van Q still spoke up, clearly feeling the pain in her heart. Similarly, Thin Pham couldn't accept it. Before being the woman on the sidelines, standing shoulder to shoulder, being a mentor of the great heavenly demon sect, and being his loyal subordinate, of course, he couldn't refuse. She understood the great and profound intentions, so she accepted it, wanting Thin Pham to agree to Vuong Qian's plea. But now, the protagonist still adamantly refuses, as it just didn't feel right. However, he had done so much for his daughter. If he had a father, he would definitely do the same. And if that girl were to die because of the 9 yin ultimate vein, it would indeed be regrettable. What's beauty to me? Van Q is the most beautiful woman in the world. Thin Pham's woman appears to be pleased by those words, likely just to cover up the mistakes he was about to make. This time, it was about human life, so she would understand. Besides Lady Vuong, she wouldn't accept anyone else. That was the end of the discussion, so the couple had finished discussing it. In the end, he took the initiative to agree to the request to save her. He couldn't turn a blind eye to the desire to save the daughter of the master. However, he repeated his plea incessantly. Cam Lo too continued to remind them that time was running out. Fortunately, they had finished conversation, so they had to hurry. Besides, even the union of yin and yang wouldn't save her now. But the protagonist still didn't know how to perform the method, so she requested everyone to leave. After Thin Pham's subordinate's withdrawal, the physician explained the method of treatment through the union of yin and yang for him to understand. Of course, it was nominally treated, but mainly contained of tender words. At that time, there might be a fierce resistance, potentially turning into a fierce battle. But he absolutely couldn't stop. Remembering this, Thin Pham's face seemed puzzled for some reason. Cam Lo too finished her affairs and left the two to there was nothing to hide on this side. So he planned to find a peaceful place. Both of them entered the study room inside. Although he had reluctantly agreed to his father's plea, he still felt very reluctant. In his mind, he silently wondered whether doing such things was truly right. First, he had to unlock the acupuncture points so that energy could be transferred. If she opened her eyes, it could easily turn into a fierce battle indeed. He began to remove the fabric covering the woman's body, revealing a figure that made Thin Pham unable to look away. Despite being inexperienced as a man, he was clumsy. He had to be gentle to stimulate her. Just as he lightly touched her, Vuong Hoyen covered his eyes to guard against the acupuncture points that were being suppressed. They were automatically unlocked. Indeed, his power was becoming increasingly formidable. It hadn't been 2 hours yet, but he had already achieved so much. Suddenly, Thin Pham's body was quickly restrained. Perhaps this would become a fierce battle, as Cam Lo too had warned. From the outside, the male's actions were indeed afraid to the extent that onlookers' hearts raced as they felt his overwhelming aura. They marveled at the talent of the martial arts master, now admiring his physical strength even more. However, it seemed that everyone just wanted him to finish quickly. Many people's expressions changed continuously as they felt the terrifying aura emanating from Du Huayan. She was probably reaching her peak because of her concern for the master. Therefore, he rushed over to help, but Cam Lo too shouted loudly to stop him. It was because the young lady was waking up from the 9 yin ultimate vein. If he intervenes now, everything will be in vain. Would he be blamed later because from now until then, it had been nothing short of an unequal battle? Suddenly, everything became quiet. Perhaps Thin Pham had finished a session. The door creaked open, and the physician predicted that the treatment was not yet complete. The energy around the house was gradually dissipating. Inside, Thin Pham breathed heavily because he had exerted too much power. He had to concentrate on transferring the yang energy now. Whatever happened next, if her blood vessels froze and she died, he would absorb this yin energy, allowing it to circulate in her body, and then focus on expelling it. Indeed, when he took the initiative, a lot of Ru Huyan's power had been transmitted into her body. There was a lot of yin energy for a normal person to withstand. Certainly, the male cannot resist this energy. He had to close his eyes and slowly feel the pleasure. But deep in his heart, the longing once again appeared to be demon energy. Why was it present while he was like this? It was swallowing up the yin energy, entering the body like a hungry beast. Even though he could make natural luck circulate, this momentum would exceed the tolerance limit. Thane Pham was struggling to cope with Du Huyen's power. In the end, she also began to open her eyes and breathe more slowly. Her body gradually returned to normal. Her eyes were back to their usual state, her face with a rosier complexion, indicating that it had an effect. But suddenly, his body became so cold that he couldn't move. Nano had to help the owner a little. She will try to raise the body temperature for him. This was because the demon energy couldn't expel the yin energy after it had swallowed too much. The internal energy of the heavenly devil sword technique and the extreme yang energy are indeed overwhelmed by the yin energy. I have already absorbed all the yin energy, but there are still tasks to be done. The erotic affair is over, so Tien Pham sits down to regulate the chaotic internal energy within his body, especially the most turbulent one, Vuong Chin. If saving Du Huyen's life requires it, then I am willing to accept anything, so feeling confused like this is inevitable. Whether my decision is correct or not, madam, remains to be seen. If she were still alive, who knows what she would do? Sensing the current state of mind of his father, Vuong Bon also tried to comfort him. But the sudden burst of anger from the study made both of them pay attention. Vuong Chin felt that this wasn't just cold energy, it was gradually diminishing. However, he could perceive conflicting energies fiercely opposing each other. Both father and son recognized something peculiar coming from the guest room. Unable to stand idly by, they rushed in to investigate. Seeing Cam Lo too, he quickly demanded an explanation. Finally, what's happening here? But she couldn't answer as it was beyond her understanding. It was erupting like a storm, and no one could absorb it. Suddenly, due to excessive compression, it created a violent shockwave. Debris flew everywhere, making it impossible for anyone to focus. From within, Tien Pham's body showed a bewildered expression. Van Q became afraid and worried for the sect leader, while Vuong Chin kept scanning for his daughter. But it seemed neither of them was harmed. He loudly inquired about the situation, but Tien Pham remained silent. His body emitted chaotic internal energy without a clear cause. Although it seemed impolite not to answer, Vuong Master temporarily overlooked it and asked again. Upon hearing it, the protagonist only smirked, leaving the unparalleled swordmaster puzzled. In a flash, he confronted the father-in-law, causing him to hastily deflect this overwhelming force, reminiscent of Vuong Du Huyen's. Still puzzled, those watching couldn't understand what had happened or if the divine wind was imminent. If such a thing were to happen, it would be grave. So, he repeatedly spoke loudly to keep him conscious. However, the response he received was a flurry of strikes, extremely dangerous. This situation would greatly affect Du Huyen. They needed to relocate her immediately. With that in mind, they resorted to physically subduing Tien Pham. Although reluctant to do so to their benefactor, the circumstances compelled them to act forcefully. After a while, the old demon god released a few more volumes. Today, we continue to follow the footsteps of the sect leader of the divine demon sect to see how he continues to handle the affairs regarding the daughter of the unrivaled Sword King. It seems that the sect leader has succeeded, but in return, Tien Pham has been possessed by the ghost train due to the invasion of yin energy. Naturally, Vuong Chin had to intervene to help his benefactor save his daughter from danger. The 5 great masters of Trongyan began to use their internal energy in their arms to gradually approach the sect leader. Witnessing this handling alone explains the title of martial arts master bestowed upon Vuong Chin. He withdrew his hand and continued to strike Tien Pham with a powerful energy, suppressing him in midair. Tien Pham's subordinates showed astonishment. If it were someone else, their body would certainly have been injured, but he didn't show any signs of pain. He was just thrown somewhere to avoid harming those around him. His body was pushed back by Vuong Chin's internal force as he tried to push the protagonist towards the garden where no one was present at the moment. However, the divine power struggled to control Tien Pham's body, unable to dominate the situation. Suddenly, everything erupted in the blink of an eye, as the heavenly devil cape proved to be an unyielding barrier against the efforts of the unrivaled Sword King. The relentless efforts of Vuong Chin had all been futile against the suppression. The protagonist's eyes turned cold, with a hint of hostility as he looked towards him. Tian Pham reshaped for a moment, then accelerated straight towards the opponent as if that person was his enemy. Even in his unconscious state, he saw himself as the adversary. If that were the case, it would be even better. He could lure him to a safer place. Wang Qin gradually backward and out of the building, while Tian Pham, later on, turned back and chased after him. From then on, he unconsciously unleashed his divine power. Amidst the rubble, something vibrated loudly. Something jumped out from behind the debris of the building. One of the divine leader's most unique weapons, the white dragon saber. Without hesitation, Tian Pham grabbed the weapon and lunged towards the opponent. As for Wang Qin, his son promptly threw the giant sword straight to his father. Wang Qin caught the weapon on the hilt and used it to defend himself against the white dragon saber. The clash of swords echoed throughout the area. A force reverberated through the cracked ground. Fascinatingly, as the heavenly realm's sword unleashed its frigid aura within the gravitational force surrounding the protagonist, pressing against the fifth Grandmaster with horrifying pressure. The actual strength of both sides is now barely deviated. Not only that, but all the surrounding areas within the courtyard were within the range of influence. It was a soul-crushing pressure, rendering even ordinary individuals like Cam Lo Tu unable to withstand it. Her body was pushed away forcefully, but thankfully, the protagonist's disciples caught her, temporarily finding a suitable position for the divine healer without being bound. Could it be that the Grandmaster was truly possessed by a ghost train? Wang Qin narrowed his eyes as he stood against the heavenly realm. He knew right from the start that he was unlike any opponent he had faced before. The Grandmaster's inner strength almost matched his own. What was more involved was the presence of frigid aura, making it challenging to resist as the cold began to seep in, causing both sword and blade to freeze. Although Wang Qin wanted to melt it, the heavenly realm's frost was almost endless. How could he be so foolish? It wasn't something a supreme martial artist could easily do, especially while in control of the energy environment. When a master holding potent positive energy absorbs negative energy, it creates an imbalance in the body. Most would go insane until they died, falling into a state of cyclic delirium. Even Wang Qin found it difficult to overpower the heavenly realm, as both had nearly equal inner strength, rendering the fifth Grandmaster helpless. The only option left was to temporarily incapacitate him. Wang Qin shouted loudly and reached out, throwing his sword remaining to the Grandmaster, while he quickly stepped back to observe. He couldn't believe that anyone could control both positive and negative energies simultaneously on such a grand scale. The heavenly realm exhaled slightly as the divine sword moved to protect its master. Fortunately, if the sword had its own will, the crisis would be over. Then the divine sword hovered in midair and fell into the hands of the heavenly realm. Now he has the white dragon blade in his left hand and the heavenly sword in his right. Could he have controlled the two massive streams of opposing energy? Wang Qin stated, "The heavenly sword is now surrounded by intimidating black energy, and the heavenly sword, emitting chilling blue-white aura from the white dragon blade. I've never seen anyone being possessed by a ghost and still being able to control two opposing energies simultaneously. This has never happened in this martial world." While he thought so, who could believe that a 1,000-year event would happen right before their eyes? What's even more unbelievable is that the heavenly Grandmaster is gradually awakening. His eyes began to return to normal. His demonic aura, the terrifying energy stored within the heavenly sword for years, was now stored within the heavenly realm's inner strength, but it acted as if it were alive, with its own will, unlike other energies, as it was aggressive and destructive. This is why the protagonist rarely released it unless absolutely necessary. Now is the time to control the freezing aura. The heavenly realm meditated through the divine aura to enhance his positive energy, attempting to release the negative energy outside, but couldn't because the heavenly sword had absorbed and stored it internally. Then a thought emerged. Unable to eliminate one of the two types of energy, they must coexist. After considering how to combine these energies, the heavenly realm fell into a transcendent state. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and breathed in a mixture of positive and negative energies, creating a harmonious blend. It was manifested in the black and white energy on the sword and blade. Just as he regained his resolution, the protagonist also understood. Wang Qin had wholeheartedly assisted him when he lost consciousness. Without one of the top 5 Grandmasters present, this area could have been turned into dust. Suddenly, another change occurred. The white energy on the blade began to turn black, and the black energy on the heavenly sword began to release frigid air. Thien Pham utilized two extreme energies at once seemed unbelievable, but it appears that now those opposing forces are attempting to merge into a perfect blend. Van Q hastily inquired. The only one truly understood what was happening was Vuong Chin, who murmured in agreement, stating that he was creating a fusion between two conflicting energy sources. In the demon aura exuded a chilling demeanor with the ability to harness that energy through the sword. Even the king of battles had to dread. The energy had also increased significantly compared to when he first fought, seeming like, at this moment, Thien Pham had cultivated more internal power than the 5 Grandmasters. He had reached a level unattainable by others. Even a newly created monster made everyone silent, watching the situation of the sect leader instinctively. They all knew that Thien Pham was in the process of breaking through. A small sound was created with powerful energy surging, surrounding the protagonist. The disciples of the Bai sect hastily gathered around to observe anxiously. The Bone Flower Lake hastily stepped out to hinder them. The main sect leader trembled because there were too many doubts about what was happening with the sect leader. Hearing the commotion, they came here. These powerful auras, what were they? Our sect leader is breaking through, so you all must return immediately. Everyone, retreat and absolutely do not disturb him at this time. Meanwhile, Cam Lo Tu was trying to recheck the situation of Vuong Du Huyen. The most worried person at the moment, perhaps, was Vuong Chin. The eyes of the divine doctor broadened with astonishment at something shocking that left her speechless. Luckily, the fiery energy in this woman's body had completely subsided. Firstly, we will take her to the medical hall for further examination and observation. Vuong Chin was very relieved when Cam Lo Tu said that the girl was fine, and his eyes softened with relief. It seems that all the efforts in searching for treatment methods have been rewarded. The divine doctor continued to request assistance from relatives to follow him, but he refused. As long as his daughter is fine, it is enough. So everyone, trust him. After finishing speaking, he also asked Vuong Bon to follow the divine doctor for support. Thus, Vuong Chin requested his son to accompany Cam Lo Tu down to the medical hall, while he volunteered to stay here to assist the law for Thien Pham, who was in a trance. But in expressing his gratitude, the only person leaving in the courtyard now was Vuong Chin. The Bone Flower Lake and Van Q on the ground began to darken and freeze. This was truly scary, and the strong cold energy enveloped the entire courtyard. The only one who could withstand such energy was Vuong Chin. Van Q silently admired the greatness of the Grand Master, who stood here to assist our sect leader. Truly, he was very grateful to him. Then suddenly, a lot of anger was emanating, making everyone feel a unique energy stream. It was none other than from Thien Pham. Not only that, but it also spread outside, and then was sucked back inside the meditative state. At this moment, his meditation state had changed rapidly. His body suddenly floated into the air unconsciously, under the absolute safety assurance of his subordinates. Everyone was surprised as the entire body of the protagonist began to crack and break apart. No one was unaware that this symptom was the shedding of the mortal cocoon. It was a phenomenon where the body changed to adapt to the new realm. The protagonist had experienced it once when reaching the pinnacle of a sect master, and now it was the second time. His bones began to change, and his skin cracked, causing his body to tremble except for Vuong Chin. The others witnessed the shedding of the mortal cocoon for the first time, so they were shocked. All impurities on the protagonist's body were completely expelled in the blink of an eye. A very large energy stream spread outward, making everyone unable to see clearly. When the layer was completely shed, the new appearance of the demon sect leader was revealed. If there were an ideal physique in this world, it would likely be the physique of Thien Pham at this moment. Van Q was looking at her man with a curious and very concerned gaze. How could his body be so beautiful? As for Vuong Chin, he was truly amazed because Thien Pham had unleashed such powerful energy beyond the limits of a human. It seemed that the protagonist had accumulated internal strength. Even the supreme martial arts master like him, who had been famous for many years, couldn't reach this level. He felt Thien Pham was no different from an ordinary person. This meant that the body had returned to its original state, and martial artists used it when they reached a stage where it absorbed all energy in and out of its source. This was a stage that even the unparalleled sword, Vuong, secretly dreamed of achieving one day. The loyal subordinates all knelt down to congratulate the success of the demon sect leader. It was just an act of assistance for a woman he barely knew, yet it could bring him such a wonderful gift like this. Certainly, this was a stroke of luck. Vuong Qin congratulated him and then hinted to catch the protagonist's attention that he had advanced to a new realm. Didn't he want to test it out? If it was safe, then Vuong Qin wanted to be the first to help him do it. He seemed very eager. Before he was just a father wanting to save his daughter. Now he had become a master and wanted to test his skills against a stronger opponent. Most people were excited somehow. One of the top 5 grandmasters even requested a duel. They had fought not long ago, but this was completely different from the chaotic battle earlier. Thien Pham didn't refuse because he was the most eager to test his new strength. The white dragon sword was firmly held in hand, and the protagonist had a few words to say to Vuong Qin. Afterwards, the group selected the grain plain, not too far from the demon sect stronghold in Hunan. It wasn't a vast land but devoid of people, making it suitable for combat, and of course it was a match held in secrecy. Therefore, all subordinates stood guard with a radius of about 5 kilometers. This was a historic showdown that no martial artist wanted to miss. And of course, it was a battle between the strongest master of the demon sect and one of the top 5 grandmasters of the martial world. In a fight between 2 people in the sect, they usually use wooden swords, but with the title of the strongest, they both used their ki. Continuous explosions erupted across the plain, and those observing from a distance couldn't help but were astonished. The way Vuong Qin wielded his great sword was terrifying because his 2 swords had a much longer and wider attack range than any other ki. And even more surprising was that he countered all of Thien Pham's techniques. Any moment of carelessness could give the protagonist an opportunity, but his opponent didn't show any. He deserved to be considered one of the top 5 grandmasters, but he also had to continuously create techniques with his great sword to keep Thien Pham at a certain distance. It was clear that if he let the protagonist get too close, the danger would increase day by day. Vuong Qin had to struggle 3 times to resist Thien Pham's sword technique since the battle began. The blood on his right shoulder was the result of that. Not only that, but this grandmaster's internal energy was also gradually depleting. If the battle drags on, he will definitely be at a disadvantage. So he had to try to end it with just one strike. Just as he was thinking, a swift sword struck, or rather, an illusion of the protagonist, but it was useless as his opponent knew it was just a residual image. This was the highest realm of using the spirit body technique, allowing one to change form in the air. Just as they arrived, Vuong Bon had to shout to warn his father. Meanwhile, he was struggling with somewhat chaotic thoughts in his head. The protagonist had flown from nowhere and directed his sword ki towards him for an attack. Thien Pham and the 5 martial arts grandmasters had agreed to a duel to test the protagonist's new brisk strength. Both sides fiercely fought back and forth, showing that neither of them was negligent in climbing to their current positions as grandparents. Thien Pham's use of the spirit body technique surprised Vuong Qin a bit. His loyal followers knew that, but no one expected him to demonstrate it so skillfully in such a short time, even better than the Great Protection technique where there were more vulnerabilities, especially behind. So Vuong Qin exerted all his agility to wield his sword swiftly, leaving no time for the opponent to maneuver. With his years of experience, he sensed a slight delay in Pham's movements. In a split second, Pham emerged from behind and thrust with the Heaven's Fury sword fiercely. Recognizing his own prowess, Vuong Qin quickly turned to parry Pham's attack. Unleashing his full internal strength, Pham's force grew stronger by the day, making it difficult for Vuong Qin to anticipate his movements. Once again, Pham's figure disappeared, bewildering his opponent. Suddenly, he reappeared from behind, launching an unexpected attack. Despite being aware, Vuong Qin couldn't land a single blow. While Vuong Qin understood the art of combat, he struggled to devise a strategy to counter Pham, the Grandmaster of the Heavenly Sect. Pham not only possessed immense strength but also unmatched agility. He effortlessly demonstrates the essence of martial arts, particularly the ethereal footwork, ascending to exploit any vulnerabilities and striking with the dark aura-imbued Heaven's Fury sword. Vuong Qin felt his sword growing heaviest in his hand. He struggled to maintain his stance as long as possible, but it was evident to anyone observing that defeat was inevitable. His internal energy seemed insufficient, while Fam's imposing momentum was overwhelming. Vuong Qin voiced his concern, defensively wielding his two great swords. Van Q looked worried, while Thien Pham appeared eager, contrasting their thoughts. Onlookers sensed that this battle seemed as if it were born from destiny. The elders noted that neither the sect leader nor the 5 grandmasters had employed lethal techniques. However, the power display was still terrifying. After nearly 50 exchanges, it was clear that Vuong Qin was being dominated. Feeling that further combat moves were unnecessary, Vuong Qin sought to elevate the match. "Can you enlighten me with the knowledge you gained at the pinnacle of martial arts?" he inquired. He wanted to understand the strength that Thien Pham had attained upon entering the realm of supreme mastery. Although it might pose a risk, he was prepared for it. "Don't worry, I might be weaker than you, but there's a reason I'm one of the top 5 grandmasters," Vuong Qin reassured Thien Pham. Sensing his concern for his own well-being, he knew that if things escalated, he would unleash his full potential for self-defense. In fact, Vuong Qin also wanted to test his own enlightenment as he reached the pinnacle of martial arts. The knowledge he sought within the ranks of the Supreme Masters interested him. Thien Pham considered this before returning his Heaven's Fury sword to its defender form within his body. Vuong Qin was slightly astonished as he regained his sword. It meant that Thien Pham was demonstrating something related to his internal energy. Pham withdraws his finger and aims at his opponent. At that moment, Vuong Qin found Thien Pham's words perplexing, especially as his internal energy surged, enveloping the area. Not only that, but it turned chillingly cold, and a black aura began forming beneath Pham's feet. Vuong Qin recognized Pham's absorption of yin energy, but he couldn't believe it. Onlookers couldn't trust their eyes either. The freezing aura gradually condensed, creating millions of ice swords suspended in the air, creating a sword frost. This was a technique Thien Pham had used during his illness. Despite absorbing the yin energy, achieving this was astonishing. But it didn't end there. The number of ice swords exceeds 100. All hung in the air, circling around Thien Pham. Feeling satisfied, Thien Pham began adjusting his strength. It felt as if he commanded an army wielding swords. All the swords were aimed forward, moving with incredible speed. Vuong Qin tightened his grip on his sword, but the strength ahead was beyond his imagination. He didn't know what to do next. Compared to their first encounter, there were more swords now, yet he couldn't avoid thinking that he could handle it. However, all of a sudden, the ice swords shattered, leaving Vuong Qin preparing to defend in shock. He began to feel displeased. "Why did you stop the attack? Do you take me for a joke?" one of the 5 grandmasters exclaimed in frustration. This action seemed insignificant compared to the second revelation Thien Pham made. As soon as he finished speaking, a light enveloped his body. All the lights converged, forming not just one but millions of swords. This was the second revelation that Thien Pham had responded, but he only had partial control over it. It was different. Perhaps now Vuong Qin's disappointment had disappeared upon seeing the scene before him. The formation of that green light resembled a surge of energy, creating a tremendous explosion that affected everything around. It wasn't just any energy. It wasn't formed by a sword. It meant it was energy that a supreme master could use, known as the sword controlling technique. A person who achieved the first level of supreme mastery could use this technique on their own sword. What Thien Pham was doing was creating the sword controlling technique out of thin air. Vuong Qin was shocked, trying to create distance by swinging his great sword, but attacks came from multiple angles. It was an unbelievable sight to see the top 5 grandmasters being pushed back. Vuong Ban, who was also watching, became afraid for his father, and Guy. The sword controlling technique was powerful, but it consumed a lot of internal energy and was only effective against weaker opponents. However, when formed by energy, it was a different story. Thien Pham was still standing from a distance, continuously controlling with his arms. Vuong Qin found himself constantly forced back, attempting to resist the overwhelming strength. It seemed Pham's speed in executing his moves had slowed significantly, a minor mistake that could lead to death. Vuong Qin had thought he could endure for only a few seconds, but it was beyond his capacity. He didn't know how long a minute in Pham's control over the swords would be, but it was challenging to fight them. Thus Vuong Chin wildly swung his swords in all directions and then shouted to Thien, "Please stop." Perhaps the 5 grandmasters couldn't bear another moment. As Thien Pham seemed to hesitate, a glimmer of light pierced through. It had pierced through this man's seal, causing numerous swords in the sky to immediately retreat. Vuong Chin dropped his 2 great swords to the ground, his face drenched in sweat. His exhaustion was palpable. Thien Pham understood his opponent's fatigue, but still wanted to continue. Vuong Chin felt helpless and shook his head, wondering if he hadn't been competent enough or if Pham still wanted to persist. Having reflected on it, he stepped forward warily towards the protagonist. It was beyond belief that the famous martial artist, one of the top 5 in the martial world, was conceding defeat. Perhaps this outcome didn't surprise the spectators, but those outside the Guardian Circle still couldn't believe it. They rejoiced because every day, the Sect leader created unimaginable shockwaves. With this event, Thien Pham had firmly established himself among the top martial artists, taking the position of a new top 5 grandmaster. Looking towards the west of Kim Lang Ton, Tam Sun Mountain stood close to the Yellow River flowing through the mountain range, splitting into 2 or 3 peaks, north and south. This geographical feature contributed to the river's name. Near the mountain was a large mansion resembling a palace, grand and imposing. Inside the central building was a room where a middle-aged man listened to his subordinates' reports. However, he didn't seem overly pleased with what he heard, particularly about Li Bei's death. "Isn't it your duty to retrieve his belongings?" the man questioned his subordinate. Although the subordinate understood the situation, he could only respond that he lacked the ability to recover them. The middle-aged man became increasingly angry upon hearing this response. "What do you mean? If you can't retrieve them, at least bring back his body," he demanded. The subordinate immediately dispatched nearby agents to search, but they couldn't find the body of the master swordsman or any of his followers. Lai Vu furrowed his brow in horror because the entire team had disappeared. It consists of 150 elite warriors led by a top martial artist. Their strength was enough to annihilate several clans in a single night. Not all were lost, but 105 bodies were missing, with 59 bodies falling into the hands of the Celestial Alliance. Lai Vu wasn't convinced. When Lai Bai was ordered to descend, he investigated the forces sighted near the Broken Sword Manor. They discovered 1 martial artist hiding next to the mansion, but there were only 40 people. There were no signs indicating any other force besides the Celestial Alliance's intervention. It seemed someone else had joined this affair, and they were meticulous, considering all factions in the martial world. These factions include the Devil Sect, the Heavenly Cult, as well as the Orthodox martial world, including the mysterious organization known as the Azure Sky Society. However, nothing suspicious was found among them. Lai Vu grew even more enraged at his disciple's death without any gain. If he could identify the mastermind behind this, he swore he would take revenge. His anger only subsided when his subordinate reported finding something. Although he was still visibly angry, he urged himself to calm down as his master induced him to present it. It was a roll of red silk embroidered with the words Imperial Dragon. Even the fixing thread was made of pure gold. Immediately, mystical energy released the sealed letter, flying upwards towards Lai Vu. He quickly untied the string and unrolled the paper to read. "Finally, Phase 3 of our plan has begun. It's a beautifully written letter with a solemn seal at the end," he asserted. "But why is it from Thong Ha County? Isn't that not our base? Aren't we operating from there?" one of his subordinates questioned. "I've heard that it's not always there," another chimed in. "I guess we don't need to risk it then. The location doesn't matter. The plan remains the same," Lai Vu reassured, clenching his fist. "After all, this person is also eager to soothe his own anger. It's just the right time for us to witness some bloodshed," he added. The scene shifts to Tin Dun, north of the Celestial Cult's base in Hunan. At the edge of Cam Lake, an old lady is seen incessantly wailing. When she received the body of her granddaughter, she cried so much that her face turned red and her eyes swelled shut. The baby in her arms was also crying bitterly, filling the room with mournful sounds. Before the presence of the venerable senior, she understood that the other party was truly in agony. It was easy to see why Cam Lo Tu showed such compassion as she cried beside the body of her granddaughter. Cam Mai Duong. It was unthinkable, and one couldn't help but feel the pain of finding a grandchild returned lifeless. Those despicable creatures dared to kill our clan's maiden. There's no way we will forgive them. Duom Dan Hoa understood sorrow well, but he only upheld what would benefit our section the most. Surely no one would ever know the true reason for Cam My Duom's death. It's a shame to lie and manipulate her in this situation, but they were not followers of the righteous path, but rather demons of the cult. At the intersection of our sect's righteousness, both Vuong Chin and Vuong Du Hoyen were confiding in each other after she regained consciousness. Her hair is still silver as ever. Vuong Chin had waited for this moment for so long. Du Hoyen's beauty had increased significantly after recovering from her frail and pale state. She looks stunning even in her soulless pallor. Gin Nian now appears like a flower anyone would desire to possess. They had been conversing for a while, but now fell into silence. It was time to discuss an important matter they both wished to avoid. Du Hoyen had slept with Thien Pham, and Vuong Chin understood this truth, but what's done is done. He only wanted the protagonist to save his daughter. However, with age, he started to show affection towards the sect leader after the decision battle. Vuong Chin now realized he was like a monstrous being, while Thien Pham, though young, had defeated 5 martial arts masters despite exerting all his strength. Not many were dubbed the greatest martial artist in history, but it seems likely that in the future, the leader of the demon cult will be the next. Of course, Du Hoyen will now be safe in the arms of the protagonist. She could refuse this opportunity, but there was no choice, and he didn't want his daughter to live in loneliness. It seemed Du Hoyen also had something to say to her father. That's why, after a moment of hesitation, she spoke up. I heard father lost to the sect leader, is that true? He didn't mention this matter out of his pride as a martial artist and a father. He also grew angry knowing how much nonsense was being spread. When Thien Pham's disciples came to see the divine healer, it seemed he had been very affectionate with Du Hoyen. At least he didn't mention that he had called her his wife as if they had been married for a long time. Father, I've decided. If you allow, I want to accompany the sect leader. It's destiny. I just met him, and I truly believe in him. Vuong Chin fell silent upon his daughter's decision to accompany the sect leader of the demon cult. From what he knew, his family wasn't the kind to fall in love just because they had relations with the opposite sex. Perhaps it was because of the loss in the previous competition. If that were the case, Vuong Chin would likely be very disappointed. Of course, Vuong Du Hoyen, being someone from Trung Nguyen, could admire a strong martial artist and consider Thien Pham realistically talented and handsome. However, her next words surprised her father. I heard from my cousin Obong that he already has a betrothed, but still helps others. Once he has a betrothed, it's difficult to do something like that. Vuong Chin frowned out of jealousy. Don't worry about it, my dear. Men are not always naive and innocent. Haven't I told you many times? Du Hoyen smiled at her father's concern. Of course, Vuong Chin wasn't like anyone else. He always cares deeply for his children. Yet he also felt uneasy about his daughter's cryptic words. If it wasn't about marriage, then why follow him? Vuong Chin continued to furrow his brow at his daughter's statement that she wouldn't marry the sect leader. The leader saved your life. If not for his help, you would have died. How could you disregard that debt? There was something strange about her words, hinting at wanting to join the cult as a servant rather than a wife.